Hello and welcome to Everyday Medicine. I'm Dr. Luke and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this podcast series where we share conversations with colleagues exploring their special interests in medicine and health and bringing insights, ideas and advice which I hope will be translatable to our medical practices. Well, in this episode we're talking with an expert about how to exercise well, and I hope this information may translate to some good advice that we can pass on to our patients. Before starting, however, for Australian audiences, listening does give you eligibility for your CPD, so log in and add this as an activity. You may also consider journaling, reflection and adding to the review and performance section in your CPD. Well, helping our patients attain good health holistically consists of diagnosing and treating their organic diseases, assisting them in achieving a healthy mental and emotional state, as well as providing education on the fundamentals of a balanced diet, sleep hygiene, supportive relationships and exercise. With over 65% of Australians recognised as being either obese or overweight, promoting and detailing a practical exercise plan should be one of our key health objectives for patients, coupled with healthy eating. And often a busy schedule, poor health, and both a lack of confidence and motivation can make exercise challenging for our patients. But generally the biggest barrier to establishing the important habit of exercise is a mental one. Well, whatever our patient's age or level of fitness, there are many steps we may lead patients along to make exercise less intimidating and painful and more fun and instinctive. We have to help our patients overcome excuses couched in terms such as, I hate exercising, doctor, I'm too busy, I'm just too tired, I'm too old, I'm too fat, my health isn't good enough, or exercise is too painful, doc, and difficult, I'm just not athletic. Well, whilst going for a walk at any pace is better than sitting on the couch, the current recommendation for most adults is to exercise for at least 150 minutes at moderate activity per week. And this may be achieved in many ways, such as exercising for 30 minutes 5 times a week. When we think about the intensity of exercise, low intensity activity is where we can easily talk in full sentences or sing during exercise, and that would be, for example, whilst we're walking. At a moderate intensity, we can speak in full sentences but not sing, perhaps at jogging. And at vigorous intensity exercise, one is too breathless to even speak in full sentences, so that's a flat-out run or skipping or jumping. It's important to recommend that patients start small with realistic chunks of time dedicated to exercise before slowly building momentum and a healthy habit. And personal trainers, exercise physiologists and exercise apps may all provide specialist assistance as well as further motivation while injecting fun and confidence into a routine. I think that's very important. And group exercises can also be inspiring and hold individuals accountable to a routine exercise program. Well, it's important to remember that whilst health gains from exercise provides excellent positive feedback to patients, as clinicians, encouraging words and interval health checks, including measurement of fitness parameters such as pulse and blood pressure, as well as a lipid profile, can be immeasurably helpful in building a patient's esteem. On this podcast, we hold a conversation with a brilliant man, a podcaster, philanthropist, myotherapist, athletics trainer for some of our future star athletes, who's also blind and managing director of Blind Magic Communication. Murray Stewart hails from Australia's Red Centre and discusses in this podcast his approach to exercise and how he's managed to motivate many of our young Australians, of whom a significant number are Indigenous, on the athletics track of our own Alice Springs, located in the deep red centre of Australia. So please welcome him to the podcast. Murray Stewart, welcome to Everyday Medicine. It's a great privilege to have you here, Murray, and we're going to delve into your wonderful background story and how you've helped so many people in the centre of Australia from an athletics perspective. Before we start talking, I also want to introduce a guest that I have at our end. Murray, you do know him, Dr. Michael Beach, who's worked also with Indigenous communities, First Nation people in Central Australia. Mike's a wonderful friend of both of us. He's an incredibly well-respected general practitioner in the area, and I thought it would be great to have him here as well because of his association with where you are geographically and of course you personally, Murray.
Well,
so we welcome Mike.
I'll just say a little bit about how I met Murray. I went to work in Alice Springs and I do some running and cycling, and I'd got a strained hamstring muscle. And one of my patients said to me, oh, there's this guy in town, Murray Stewart, who's a very good therapeutic masseur. So I went and saw Murray and he did a great job on me. But Murray is a very compelling person. And once we started talking about, physicality and athletics, Murray convinced me to come along to training, where he was the athletics coach of the junior athletics club and has had some great successes. So he encouraged me to come to training, and I ended up becoming, for a period of time, the club doctor. And I went on first I really enjoyed being with Murray and meeting all the kids, and the incredible job Murray did of inspiring kids from all sorts of different backgrounds. Some of them were advantaged, some were disadvantaged. There were people of many different races. There were Aboriginal people, white people, Indian people. There was a boy from Thailand, Kenyans. So there was a real mix of people. And Murray was absolutely the leader of this group, the strength that held it all together. And I was incredibly impressed. And in fact, he acted not only as an athletics coach, but somewhat of a social worker. Like, some of these kids were struggling, Murray would take them aside, look after them. Some of them were misbehaving, and Murray would speak to them firmly, but they always respected it. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I think Murray, you're a very important part of the glue that keeps your local community together, and also a mentor, as Michael was saying. Can you give us, Murray, a little bit of a background? You're vision impaired. Just how you've, like, your background, how you've taken all that into athletics, because we really want to focus on how we get our community fit, how we get them trained. Take us through your journey, Murray.
Can I just make one last thing? Murray is not only vision impaired, he's completely blind. He sees nothing. So he's not like a lot of other people who are vision impaired. Murray is completely blind.
Yeah, it's Murray, you haven't let that be an impediment. Take us through it, Murray. Tell us a bit about yourself, Murray. Thank you.
Well, firstly, thank you, Luke. Wonderful to be on your show. And thank you for your fine, most unnecessary words, but thank you so much, Michael. And you were certainly a wonderful addition to our team.
Thank you.
So, Murray, take us through how have you got into athletics? What's your journey? Just take us through that, can you?
Well, I guess going back to when I was born in 1963, even from a young age, I yearned to play high-level sports. And I don't think I even imagined that my vision impairment would be an impediment at that stage. I just loved listening to the Test cricket, so I wanted to play cricket for Australia. I loved listening to the Olympic Games, so I wanted to run for Australia. And it didn't seem to in any way figure in my contemplation that maybe that would be an impossibility because of my vision impairment. So I did quickly, get involved in sports that did involve people with vision impairments, both cricket and the athletics. And so it came to pass that I did end up playing cricket. Well, I was selected for 12th man for the Australian blind cricket team. And I also ran for Australia as a vision impaired athlete in both the 8 and 1500 metres. So my dream eventually was realised. But what was also realised, Luke, was the fact that human movement, the ability to do things on a cricket field or on an athletics track, then lent me confidence to challenge all sorts of things in my life. And so I'm a big advocate for human movement when you are a person with a disability, in order to ensure that you are equalised through building your confidence through human movement.
Do you think, Murray, that a lot of Australians, people around the world that are severely vision impaired, just perhaps don't have the confidence to do that? They feel they just don't have the confidence, feel uncomfortable. They're not sure if they can fall, knock over someone, maybe feel embarrassed. Is that you overcame all those hurdles, didn't you? All those impediments. How did you do that?
The first day that I went and was integrated into what we call a mainstream school, I remember that the teachers wouldn't even allow, because I have an identical twin brother who is also totally blind, and we were actually corralled into a room at lunchtime away from all of the other kids. And I can remember that myself and my brother hatched a plot together, and that we would make a run for it next lunch break. And so we did. We actually went out into the playground, and we quickly mingled with all of the other kids. There was no harm done. It was just the ignorance at the time. And I think the teachers felt that we would in some way be harmed by our association with sighted kids. But quite the reverse was true. And so by being integrated and by winning the physical confidence of the teachers and the psychological confidence of the teachers, we were able to then start playing sport with them, start running with them, and even start doing things like playing rugby league and the more physical sports. So, and there was no harm done, no broken bones. It was all good.
Remind me, Murray, did you have a little bit of vision in your earliest years?
No. No, actually, my apologies. Yes. We had what they call light perception, which is the ability to tell light from dark, night from day, but not useful sight. I can remember I was able to locate vivid colours. Vivid colours, like, for example, a bright yellow bucket on fresh green grass, that sort of thing. But no, not what you would call useful sight.
And at what age did that disappear?
I can remember when I was playing cricket. I was playing cricket for the New South Wales Blind Cricket Club against Queensland, and I was a fast bowler. And I was taking a long run up. And I can remember that I was having trouble at 15 years of age locating the wicket at the bowler's end, and it was really from about then that I realised that I was losing pretty much all of my sight. I still played on and went on, but that was the moment when I realised that perhaps my sight was diminishing more rapidly than it had been previous.
Well, Murray, how did you sort of pivot from that into taking on the athletics club at in Alice Springs, and then being a mentor, but also a great coach, and indeed having an Australian champion there? How did you get into that part of your life and to find your way into such a central and important figure in the club?
Well, Luke, to be honest, I had competed at high levels in both athletics and cricket for such a long time that stepping away from sport came hard to me. Retiring from sport came hard to me. And it came through a condition that you'd be familiar with, plantar fasciitis. And I developed that as an athlete, and it got to the point where it was very, very difficult for me to continue with running. So I had to make the decision to step aside from at least the track running side of athletics, and that was a very hard place to be for me, a very hard call. And so I then decided that I could still be useful and still be a mentor and still be a part of athletics by becoming a coach. So that was the transitional decision that I decided to make.
Right. Okay, Michael, you've seen Murray coaching, haven't you? How does he do it?
Well, it's incredible. He does have a team. He gets together a few people, trusted people, who he will ask how they're going, how fast they're going. He is aware of that through people talking to him. He, I believe, also can hear when they pass him the cadence of their running, the pounding of their feet on the grass, and the breathing of the people. He's obviously Murray has lost his sight, but he's developed other senses a lot better than most of us. Obviously, that's helped him in massage, because you don't need to be able to see to massage well. But I felt that Murray knew people well. He sort of knew how they looked without being able to see them. He was aware of body shapes and sizes. He was aware of the build of the different athletes. This is through, I think, listening to them run, feeling them run past, and some input from other people. And Murray, he's got a great brain and a great memory. He knew their times. He knew each individual child and their parents. He knew what they were capable of. He knew the people who would be good athletes. And a lot of it is through these other senses that no doubt blind people develop. But Murray, and I think Murray putting himself out there, it probably made him develop that even more.
Thank you, Michael. I talk about the sound of running in this sense that I always try and position myself where the athletes are running both away and then toward me. And that's how we do our repetitions. And I make sure that I'm in position in such a way where I can hear them running past. And athletes have what I call a beautiful music when their rhythm is as an athlete's rhythm should be. It just sounds absolutely beautiful.
Murray, you've got a specific training sort of method. I think we discussed this with Michael with you at one point, that you have a tendency, I think, to get everybody out running hard for a certain distance. So tell us a little bit about that idea. I want to expand that into how we get everyone working and training, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, I guess firstly, to get to that point, I'll just explain a bit about my background as an athlete. I started as a sprinter, and then I moved into middle distance as I grew older. But the one thing that's always occurred to me with Australian sprinters, 400-metre runners in particular, is that they always seem to lose a race when the whips really got cracking, like over that last 100, 200 metres. And so my feeling is that the sprinters in Australia were always taught wonderfully how to run fast, but they weren't taught, how to use their pace consistently and over the full distance. And 400-metre running is such that you really do need to be running as fast at the end as you were at the beginning. And the thing is that, Luke, a human can really only run at full speed for 80 metres. So after that initial 80 metres, it's who is going to decelerate the slowest, who will win a 400-metre race. And so I ensured that my athletes decelerate slower than anybody else, which makes them look very, very fast. But in actual fact, they're just very, very fit.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about the base training concept, the base. You would get all the runners, the 100-metre, 400, 800, 5,000-metre runners, and they'd all do together this base training.
Correct. So I always insist that even my sprinters do anywhere from a 1 mile to 2K time trial consistently. And I need them to get those times down to a level by which I know that when it comes to that last 100, 200 metres, as I said, their rate of deceleration will be so slow that they will be, in fact, faster than anybody else. And I can remember when I got James Swayo winning the 400-metre Australian under-17-metre championship, and I can remember the Channel 7 team at the time they were broadcasting said that he was cutting his way through the field like knife through hot butter. And they said his acceleration is out of this world. But I knew that he was not accelerating. It's just that he was not decelerating, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yes. That's interesting. So we've got the base training that you have, and you've had great success with that. And I think it sounds like the young athletes in Alice Springs certainly respect your training methods, as do the parents, because you're getting great success. And I think a lot of people in the cities would be surprised to see how much success that Murray Stewart is having with the Alice Springs Junior Athletics Club, including Australian champion. But Murray, I want to expand this idea to just the clinicians all around Australia, like general practitioners, physicians, that have patients that really need to sort of get themselves moving. They need to exercise a little bit. Often these patients need some dietary assistance with weight loss, but that part of the approach to getting patients a little bit fitter and helping them with their weight loss and metabolic syndromes that they have is to get them active. Now, some people can't exercise very much. Some people have never exercised very much, short of maybe when they were at school. What advice could you give to clinicians that are trying to motivate their, like, let's say, unfit patients, trying to get those patients up and about? What would you say? Give us a sort of a rough idea of a program, a thumbnail sketch of what we could offer them.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. That's a very good question. So firstly, I think that everyone has an athlete inside of them. Everyone has an athlete inside of them. It's just that perhaps it's never been woken before. It's never been asked of them before, and they've never therefore believed it or never wanted to go down that track. And so I think that the notion that someone simply cannot do exercise is a misnomer in that sense. So I think just simply to say to someone, how do you know you can't do it? And wait for their answer.
Yes.
And very often their answer simply is, well, I've never thought about doing it. I've never done it. And you say, aha, okay, so therefore you really don't know whether you can do this or not. How about and just start them off at something that they would like to do, that they would have fun doing, whether it be in the pool or whether it be just a gentle walk. It doesn't matter what it is, but just to let them know that everyone has an athlete inside of them. We do. We truly do.
Can I just say, one of the things I noted at training in Alice Springs was the kids love to go there. You created somehow through your personality and that they wanted to be there. And for some kids, it was sort of the highlights of the week going to training, especially some of the kids where they weren't well looked after at home. And there were some kids like that this was a safe place for them to go, a place where they could belong. They had other friends, like-minded friends, even though they may have come from totally different backgrounds. But the kids loved going to training. And I think that was important. So it's a sense of pleasure and fun, and you help create that. But
yes, Michael.
People need that.
I think also, Michael, and you'll know this, that I insisted, and we live in a modern world where we've been running away from one another, but I insisted on that tactile contact. I insisted on the shaking hands and this sort of thing. And I think that they sort of trusted that, and they love that. They love that whole, the tactile expression of well done, sort of well done to you and well done to everyone, and just slapping hands together and being a part of something very special. I think that welded the environment together.
Murray, do you think for patients that haven't exercised much, we're trying to encourage that inner athlete that sort of is in those patients, recognising some patients are at an age where they're not going to be able to do very much, or they may have arthritis, some other physical constraints to what exercise they can do. But do you think it's important that we try and encourage our patients to maybe go in groups, to feel, as you have done in us, feel part of a cohort of other like-minded people that are exercising? Is that, do you think, a part of the sort of success that we should be aiming for with patients?
I do. I think everyone, however, is motivated differently. Some are a little afraid of a group context, maybe not confident with showing their vulnerability. But I think if I can remind them, or if we can remind them of a marathon runner, and her name escapes me just for the minute, but she was extremely overweight, And how she started is she simply tied a rope to a rotary clothesline, and she ran or walked around that to begin with, and then she started to jog around, and then she began to break into a run, and she went on to win the Olympic gold medal. I will get her name for you for potentially another episode, but when you hear a story like that, you realise that anything is possible. It's just about what's happening above your shoulders.
What do you think, Michael? I mean, yeah, I'd ask Michael from his experience in general practice, because you'll have people who've got metabolic syndrome that that don't exercise very much, and there's often many excuses why they don't feel they can. What sort of questions can we put to Murray to develop the Murray-Stewart protocol for our patients to get them in there?
A lot of the thing I find in general practice, when I see someone who has been fit, has been an athlete, you can get them going. It's more difficult for the people who've never been fit. But I think you've got to add a sense of fun. They've got to find basically any movement, the first movement they do is really important, even the first little walk. So you've got to get them doing something, and preferably you get them doing something that they like. I remember watching a program on television a while ago. In Germany, they did this study, and they had two groups of people. They had one group, they paid for them to go to the gym for a year, and they got much fitter. The other group, they paid for them to have dancing lessons, and they got much fitter. And at the end of the year, the people going to the gym, just the gym, stopped going to the gym. But the dancing group organised to keep doing it. They kept their dancing going. So I think it was that sense of fun and pleasure, camaraderie, friendship, doing things in a team that helped. So I think one thing, if you can get people doing things even with one other friend.
Yeah. And Murray's talking about that tactile component too, where you've got of almost part of a club. You're shaking hands, it's well done, there's encouragement. It's all.
I also can remember, Luke and Michael, where I had a client of mine at work who she was in her mid-80s. She was at Old Timers here in Alice Springs, which is, I guess, a nursing home for older Territorians. And she had really bad arthritis in her hands. And all she wanted to do was to be able to eat a meal without assistance. That's all she wanted to do. So I was able to engage an OT to get her to the point where she was able to do that and able to achieve that. And just that breakthrough moment created the opening for me then to suggest to her an exercise program to get her mobile. And she flew into that program. She was literally like a young woman again. And just to be able to do that one thing that she feared and to challenge that made all the difference to her confidence. And it did release the inner athlete within her then to do this other work. Yeah.
I'll just go back to this concept of the team thing, doing things with other people. One of the great things about your athletics club in Alice Springs was they would go to a state championship each year as a team, and the kids loved it, and the parents loved it, and you and I loved it. It's sort of a bonding experience. They all encouraged each other, and it didn't matter if they were good athletes or not so good athletes. They all supported their other team members. I think doing things as a group really helps people.
And the one thing you spoke about the group in the group sort of context, Michael, and you're so correct, because the one thing, as you know, that I introduced was relay training. As a they were all obviously athletics is a very individual sport, but to try and build that team environment through relay training.
Yes. Another thing, tell us a bit about training on hard surfaces and training on grass.
Yes. Well, it to me is wonderful because you have less deleterious effects on the hard tissue, but in actual fact, it's good for the soft tissue because you are having to work a little harder because obviously with the resistance of the grassy surface. But so on one hand, you're reducing the hard tissue injury aspect, but on the other hand, you are improving the power. And once they get onto the synthetic surface where there's no resistance, then they're running a lot faster.
Yeah. And another interesting thing about the athletes in Alice Springs, and I think they took it from the Aboriginal kids, but a lot of them would run in bare feet on the grass.
Like Zola Bud.
Yeah, they'd run in bare feet.
Yes.
And they would prefer it, even if they had shoes, they'd take them off and run in bare feet on the grass.
Correct.
And
Michael, we remember when we were kids, that's all we wanted to do was to take our shoes off and run. Such a beautiful thing. And once again, just improving the quality of what they were doing, making it fun, making it enjoyable. So they wanted to be there.
Yeah. And since when I first saw that, I thought, they should be wearing shoes. But I observed that they ran very well in bare feet. And I've read a bit about this barefoot running movement and that we should all spend some time in bare feet. I mean, it said that we should take our shoes and socks off as soon as we go home, walk around in bare feet, encourage children to spend time even outside in bare feet, better contact with the earth, and better what we call in medicine proprioception. You develop better proprioception, which is ability to sort of feel with the skin and the muscles and tendons to be close to the ground, and it improves balance, and it's just generally good for us. And
100%, and very easy to achieve here in Alice Springs with the Indigenous kids. If we actually made them put their shoes on, obviously you need to be protective and sensible about this. You can't have them running without their shoes on if you suspect that there is glass or something on the ground. But in general, if we implemented that rule at athletics that they were all to wear shoes, you probably wouldn't see the Aboriginal kids. They love to run barefoot.
But then
They're good at it.
I saw with interest that the white kids would start to copy the Aboriginal kids, and they would run in bare feet. It was true.
Correct.
Correct. Half the kids ran in bare feet.
I wonder if Kathy Freeman was a barefoot runner when she was younger.
I don't know. Almost certainly.
I was almost back at it. Well, I know, Luke, that the other athlete that I trained to 400 metre success was a young female Indigenous athlete. Her name was Katara Wallace, and a better athlete I have never witnessed. I remember the first night she came down, and that was when I was actually still fit as an athlete, and I got her to run with me, hanging on to if you like, a rope that I used for such purposes, and I've never witnessed anything like it. She, firstly, the rhythm of her body movement I could feel through the rope was extraordinary. But I remember when I was running with her, as we were entering either the curve or the region of the straight, she would say, curve coming up, and then she'd say, now. And I was able to perfectly position my own body with hers. She had this incredible, uncanny ability to position herself with me in such a way which was athletic perception and perfection. It was extraordinary. I've never come across anything like it. Now, when we lost her to athletics through circumstances which is still very, very sad to me, she was running faster than Kathy Freeman at the same age. She was an Australian champion. She was undefeated. We had not lost a race, and she was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, unbelievable.
Well, it's another inspiring story. Murray, we've got the Murray Stewart protocol here. We've got overcoming people's fears, getting patients or whoever we're talking about in regard to exercise, getting them out there to overcome their fears and start exercising, encouraging them, maybe getting them involved socially. So we're making the whole idea of training and getting a bit fitter fun. I just wanted to ask how you encourage people to continue. Like, how do we get people to continue and then push them on a little bit? They might start with a gentle walk. We might want them to break into a jog at times. So, do you have any tips for how we might encourage our patients to stay the course, if you like, and also just improve a little bit over a period of time so they can get their fitness to build? Any tips?
Well, for me, it's always about not where you start, it's where you finish. And if you know that they haven't got to their full potential, it's about telling them that.
Right.
It's about telling them that. Say, hey, wow, you have done so well, but we've got some unfinished business here. How about we can continue doing this together?
Yes.
Can I just say something about one of the latest theory, or the latest theory in sport, and I include runners, cyclists, swimmers, and other longer distance people, is this 80-20% rule. It's now considered that even the elite athletes, including the world champions, do 80% of their training in what's called zone 2. If you've got 5 zones, 5 is flat out. Zone 2 is just below the level where your lactic acid goes up. And evidently this is very good for mitochondrial development.
Right.
So
can you talk in zone 2 exercise?
In zone 2, you could talk.
Just.
You'd be slightly short of breath.
Yes.
But even all the world champions now are training in zone 80% in zone 2. And there's a young man from Canberra called Cameron Myers, who's just out of this world. He's run a mile as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old in 3 minutes, 50 seconds a month. He's run 1,500 metres in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, I've been following him on Strava, and you get the feeling on his average run, you could keep up with him.
Because he's in zone 2.
He's in zone 2. But you would go nowhere near him when he's up into his zone 5. Like, he's a world-class elite young man. And the Norwegians are producing some great runners now, and they're doing. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the current Olympic 1,500 metre champion, does most of his training in zone 2. And of course, his zone 2 would be faster than most people can run. But zone 2, 80% of the time, not hard. And evidently, that is actually really good for you. Then we've got all the talk of the high intensity training, but you don't need to do that much of it. And they say, it's said that even people go out for 4 minutes, high intensity training. Their longevity improves. They're less likely to die young.
That's the Japanese, the Yakamoto showed that. Yeah. I think Peter Attia talks about this in his book, doesn't he? A life that, you outlive, that you spend a lot more time in the zone 2 rather than the very high intensity sort of training. That you do need to mix it up a little bit. But
I think if people can do a lot of it in their zone 2, not too hard, they enjoy it more. They're not flogging themselves all the time. If you're trying to go flat out all the time, it becomes a bit of an unhappy scene. It's too hard. People can't keep it up. So I'd encourage people to spend a lot of time in zone 2, but also do like the base you talked about, really hard for a couple of kilometres.
Murray, I'd like to ask you, we have to close here with the podcast, but I'd like to ask you, in terms of giving an inspirational kind of speech or quote to some of your young athletes, do you have one that you can share with us?
Yes, I do, and it's based on what you were talking previously about how to motivate people. And I've always believed that whilst there is an athlete within us, that we also are inclined to be lazy unless we keep ourselves busy. In other words, I would be the laziest person in the world if I didn't keep myself busy, and so I choose to do that. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm evoking the adrenaline within me. I'm promoting that to get me off the lounge, off the chair, outside. And so I always say, chase that lazy person away. And I guess the best example I can give of that is that if you're at home and you're lazing around on a chair, and then all of a sudden your favourite song comes on the radio, all of a sudden you might be up singing or even dancing to that because the adrenaline has got going. So just get that adrenaline going and chase that lazy person away.
Oh, Murray, look, thank you very much. And again, Murray, we really appreciate you joining us from Alice Springs. We look forward to having another conversation with you soon. We've got more subjects we want to discuss with you, Murray. So thank you so much for joining us today. You've given us some great tips about how to motivate our patients. And
it's terrific to talk to you, and I love your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Murray. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for joining me with the very brilliant Murray Stewart, who can be reached at bridgeovermurray@bigpond.com in the show notes. I thought his talk was quite inspirational, and what he's done for young athletes in Alice Springs has also been incredible. Hopefully some of his advice will translate into the way we advise our patients about exercise. And it should be noted that holistically we do need to think about patients' mental state and their diet and all the aspects that affect their health, including relationships. Well, next week we'll have another interesting guest. And during the podcast series, we will be covering a wide range of topics across many interests. The discussions are not intended as specific advice for patients, but as general information only and reflect the opinions of the guests interviewed. Requests for new topics to be reviewed and comments about the conversation you've listened to are welcomed and may be emailed to manager@geohealth.com.au.